One night, I realized there was something that quietly scared me. Our life had become so busy that I could barely remember the last time I truly enjoyed a day with my daughter. Our calendar was completely full. Yet somehow our hearts felt strangely empty, and we were always rushing from one thing to the next. I kept telling myself that all of this was for Mira's future. But the more we tried to keep up with, the less real time we seemed to have together as a family. Then I started asking myself a question. What if my daughter didn't need more activities from me, but simply more of my presence? My name is Clara. Like many mothers, I simply want to give my family the best I can. Most mornings begin with a rush. I move from breakfast to cleaning, checking schedules, and making sure everyone gets where they need to be on time. After school, Mira almost always has somewhere else to be. There's tutoring, practice, or another activity I think would be good for her development. By the time we get home, there is still laundry, kitchen work, and a list of unfinished tasks waiting for me. The day seems to pass before I have really had a chance to sit down with her. Our home is filled with toys, activity books, and things meant to support her. Yet sometimes I notice that the more we have around us, the less time we seem to have to enjoy them. Lately, I've started to feel that something is out of balance. We are so busy building what looks like a good life, yet I sometimes wonder if we are actually living it. At first, I thought all of this was simply a busy phase. I kept telling myself that things would feel calmer next week. But one week turned into another, and our calendar only seemed to get fuller. Somehow, the time we had together kept becoming shorter. I started noticing the little patterns that kept repeating. We would sit down for a meal together, yet each of us was already thinking about what came next. I started buying more toys so Mira would have something to do at home. But what she asked for most often was simply for me to play with her. I began asking myself something I hadn't really considered before. Was I meeting Mira's needs, or was I simply trying to meet my own expectations as a mother? That question stayed with me for a while, and for the first time, I found myself willing to listen to what the answer might be. I started looking at our days from a different perspective. What exhausted me was not the amount of work, but how little room we had to breathe. Whenever I had free time, I found myself wanting to fill it with something new. I wanted that empty space to feel productive. I began noticing that our home felt full too. Not only with things, but with a schedule that never seemed to stop. The fuller our calendar became, the harder it was to enjoy the simple moments. Somehow, the things that mattered felt easier to rush through. I started missing afternoons that had no plan at all. No target, no rushing, and no feeling that I had to accomplish something. That was when I began to believe something. Maybe our family did not need a faster life, but a slower one. From the outside, our life still looked perfectly ordinary. We laughed, went to work, and followed the same routines as any other family. Yet inside me, there was a kind of tiredness I could hardly explain. I was physically present, but I often felt like I wasn't completely there. Even while I played with Mira, part of my mind stayed busy. I kept remembering the list of things I still hadn't finished. Armand told me a few times that we needed to rest, would only smile and say, later when everything is finished. But I already knew the truth about that list. It was never really going to be completely finished. I started asking myself something I couldn't easily shake. If we kept living this way, what memories from Mira's childhood would she actually remember? That evening, I finally decided not to open my laptop after dinner. Instead, I sat on the living room floor and stayed with Mira while she played with her building blocks. We built a little house together, and for once, there was no schedule to follow or target to reach. All I noticed was Mira's laughter, something I realized I had not heard this freely in a long time. A few minutes later, Mira looked up at me with a small smile. She quietly asked, "Mom, you're not rushing today, are you?" Her simple question made my hands stop. In that moment, I realized that even a child could feel how often I was rushing. I pulled her into a closer hug without saying anything. The guilt I felt slowly began to turn into awareness. That night, I understood what Mira had been missing. It was not more activities. She simply missed having her mother fully present with her. After Mira fell asleep, I sat quietly in the living room. For the first time, I began looking at our life a little differently. I realized that our exhaustion was not because we were incapable. We had simply been saying yes to too many things. I opened our family calendar and looked at it more carefully. For the first time, I allowed myself to remove a few activities that were not truly important. I created a simple rule for our family and called it the quality over quantity schedule. Each week, we would choose just one main activity, leaving some room for us to breathe together. Once the schedule became less crowded, our conversations seemed to last longer. I noticed more laughter around the house, and everything began to feel much quieter. That was when I finally understood what I had been missing. Children do not need a childhood filled with agendas. They need a childhood filled with presence. The next evening, after Mira was asleep, I talked with Armand about everything I had been keeping to myself. For the first time, I let the thoughts I had been carrying alone come out in the open. "I'm tired of always feeling like we have to keep up with everything," I said quietly. "Sometimes I'm afraid we're so busy building our life that we forget to enjoy it." Armand was quiet for a moment before taking my hand. "I feel the same way," he said, admitting that he had never really known how to put it into words. Together, we opened the calendar and went through our activities one by one. We looked at each commitment without blaming each other. We agreed that from now on, we wanted to choose more time together instead of simply filling the calendar. The thought felt simple as we said it aloud to each other. That conversation did not change our life overnight, but that night, I no longer felt like I was carrying everything by myself. A few weeks later, our weekends began to feel different. We did not always have big plans, but there was always time for us to be together. Sometimes, we simply took a slow walk through the park near our home. Other times, we sat on the terrace with warm tea while listening to Mira tell her stories. Our home did not become more luxurious. Still, the atmosphere inside it felt much lighter than before. I no longer felt guilty when I turned down activities that would only leave us more tired. Saying no to some busyness meant saying yes to our family. Mira began asking us to play together more often. And this time, I truly had the time to answer, "Come on." I realized that the biggest change had not happened on our calendar. It had happened in the way we enjoyed the simple days we already had. I now believe that a happy childhood is not measured by how full a child's schedule is. What matters to me is how often they feel that their parents are truly there beside them. If this story has kept you company today, I would be happy to have you become part of the small family here at Clara's Family Journal. Here, we learn to build a home that feels calmer, warmer, and more mindful, one small step at a time. Thank you for taking the time to spend this moment with today's journal. I hope we can all find the courage to slow our pace enough not to miss the moments that are actually most precious. Now, I want to ask you something. What is one activity you would like to reduce or slow down this month so your family has more time to truly be together?